This year's French Open kicked off on a rather nostalgic note with the big four of men's tennis uniting in Paris and Rafael Nadal receiving a heartfelt tribute in front of a packed, emotional Roland Garros crowd. But while the tournament started on a high, it's already drawing a lot of flack in the first week itself. A former world number 2, Ons Jabeur, has publicly slammed the French Open organizers. She's called out the event's scheduling decisions, pointing out that not a single women's match has been featured in the night session this year, something that's happened since the time nighttime slots were first introduced.
It's unfortunate for women's sports in general. They don't show women's sport. They don't show women's tennis. And then they ask, yeah, but why do people mostly watch men? Of course they watch men more, because you show men more.
In other Grand Slams, like the US Open or the Australian Open, there are 2 matches in the night time, meaning there's room for both men's and women's matches to take place. But in Paris, it's just one, and that one spot almost always goes to the men. In 2022 and 2023, only 1 women's game as compared to 9 for men took place. And since 2024, the slot has entirely been reserved for the men. 11 men's games so far and none for the women athletes. 0 women's matches have made the night session for 2 straight years now. No wonder there's a growing debate, but not every female athlete is pushing to play late at night. But here's what's probably enraged Jabeur. The reason tournament officials are giving out for excluding women from these night sessions.
Sometimes we need to for the night session, we need to put the better match.
The phrase to, of course, focus on here is the better match. Now, that assumption that men's matches are inherently better is not only outdated, it's factually incorrect. Let's rewind to 2022. A third-round match featuring Serena Williams drew an average of 4.6 million viewers, peaking at 6.9. It became the most watched tennis broadcast in ESPN's 43-year-long history, a history that spanned 4 decades, which features some of the best men playing. But that was Serena, and that too near the end of her career. A year before that, the Women's US Open the final between Emma Raducanu and Leylah Fernandez pipped the men's final between Novak Djokovic and Daniil Medvedev. The women's final peaked at 3.4 million, as opposed to the men's event, which had a peak of 2.7 million, still lower. Or take the 2019 Australian Open final, for example, between Naomi Osaka and Petra Kvitova. In Japan, 20 million viewers. In the US, 529,000, an 18% increase from the previous year. So the demand is there, and it's not just in tennis. Look at Caitlin Clark, who's become the face of the WNBA. Her presence alone has triggered record viewership for the sport. Just last weekend, 2.22 million tuned in to watch her team, Indiana Fever, take on the defending champs, New York Liberty. And earlier this year, 2.25 million watched the Fevers beat Chicago Sky, the most watched WNBA game in 20 years. Ticket sales have dropped 47% since Clark's recent injury sidelined her for 4 games. So the takeaway, it's not that women's sports can't draw attention, it's just that it's a notion that we invariably attach to any sport.
I do think there's a lot of benefits to having the women on during the night matches. We attract a lot of fans, a lot of crowd. We create a lot of discussion around the game overall.
Now that's why Ons Jabeur's comments resonate. The claim that the best match is always a men's match, well, it only holds up because women's matches are never given that chance. Players like Aryna Sabalenka and Iga Swiatek are playing exceptional tennis. Aryna Sabalenka's serve last year, in fact, at the US Open, was the fastest across women and men contenders. She registered that. So unless the French Open tries rejigging their schedule, they'll never know. They'll never find out just how many viewers could tune in for a women's match at a nighttime slot.
Firstpost now available in 9 languages on YouTube. English,
$36 trillion.
French,
Le FMI, comme
German,
Geschäftsführenden Direktoren,
Hindi,
$30 trillion ka karjeng.
Indonesian,
Pemerintah tanpa pemeriksaan.
Italian,
Kali radikali.
Japanese,
4兆ドル以上の
Portuguese,
por causa do próprio balanço patrimonial.
Spanish.
Beautiful bill.
Go to Settings, click on Audio Track and select the language of your choice. Be the first to know what's happening around you in your first language. Firstpost.